Welcome to the sixth and final round of Swiss here at the Eternal Tournament Series. I am Truedawn, joined by LocoPojo.
Hello, hello.
And
we have Juaspas today versus the the other deck. Shoot, BobertJoe, Shimmer and Comrade. That's what happens when you don't have the stats right in front of you there. And we are waiting for that game to start.
Yep, we've seen Juaspas earlier in the day. He's on Xena Control, and this match is for top 8. Both players are X1. So we will be moving into the game here from the perspective of BobertJoe on Shimmer and Comrade, seeing that he has 2 Xena Control, 2 Xena Obelisk, too many Xena things in his hand, which are going to be very powerful moving forward. It's going to make every threat he has very potent, and it's going to really tax Juaspas's removal.
Yeah, even that Desert Marshal could be threatening. He might want to play that even as early as possible. Probably not against a Temple Scribe, but you never know. Just having more units on the board can be very beneficial. Juaspas's deck is, of course, going to have a lot of slower control cards. There are 3 Sabotages in the deck. We haven't seen one of them yet, so it looks like these Xenon Obelisks are going to come down scot-free.
At least one of them, it would seem. And that Amber Acolyte was an excellent draw in the place for BobertJoe, getting the power to cast a Xenon Obelisk, and also having a card that benefits from the Xenon Obelisk at the same time.
Yeah, Joe has to decide whether or not he wants to play threat cards that can use the Obelisk or the Obelisk itself. And that's really a difficult question. Because there are sabotages, playing attachments from your hand early can help blank those sabotages for later. But overall, playing tempo cards here does benefit him more in terms of just raw damage and how much he can output. So it's a question of card advantage versus tempo advantage, and I think that Bobert's making the right play going for the tempo here.
Yeah, it's certainly very interesting getting on board before you play the Xenon Obelisk. The only thing that really does punish you is the 3 Xenon Obelisk. It's fairly unlikely those happen. It's only 3 cards. So I do like getting some amount of board presence here before you deploy the Obelisks, so you can actually have block these little random creatures, these other Amber Acolytes that are presenting a clock. Yep. Although it looks like BobertJoe wants to just get in there.
Yeah, cracking right back seems like the right choice here. Obviously, there's not a lot of good blocks for things. Basically, every time that he trades evenly here, he just gets to expand his board out. He gets to continue to pressure Juaspas, and that forces the control deck to go a little bit more on the back foot.
We see this Umber Reaper actually is pretty potent threat. BobertJoe does have the Desert Marshal for it. It is going to get neutralized here, but it is one of the more potent things in the matchup.
Yeah, he can buff his own 3/3 if he chooses to. I'm actually surprised he didn't buff his 3/3 and attack with it. Just play the Desert Marshal down early and avoid any unfortunate possibilities of an Annihilate or any sort of removal getting that 5 health gain.
I guess you can either attack profitably for 3 damage or have a good blocker for this 5/1. That was the choice he was making. But Death Strike ended up blowing it up.
If you play the Combat Healer and buff the 3/3 and make it into a 3/6, then that can attack evenly into the Umbran Reaper and still have a 3/3 blocker for the Reaper later. So I don't know. It's a interesting play either way. I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with BobertJoe's line. And from here, we are looking at more obelisks hopefully soon. Plus, Sandstorm Titan has yet to actually make its appearance.
Although BobertJoe is down on creatures now, it's just the front half of the Mirror Disciple and the Sandstorm Titan. Both are incredibly potent because of the Xenon Obelisks, but if he doesn't find creatures for an extended period of time, he may run out of gas.
Yep. At the moment, Marison's Disciple is currently demanding a single target removal spell, which is something that you really don't want a Marison's Disciple to be doing on your side of the deck. This thing's about to be a 6/6, which, considering he played it as a 2/2, is definitely a significant threat.
Even going to be a 7/7, right, with the other Xenon Obelisk? Or no, 6/6, right? Never mind.
Yep, double 2s, and Sandstorm Titan here becomes, I think, a 9/10. Yep. So, a significant amount of potential threats here. Juaspas can, of course, find some sort of answer to the Sandstorm Titan, and if he does, he presses for enough damage that's possibly going to give BobertJoe pause, but it looks like instead he finds a Find a Way. So he's just slowly looking for his bigger units.
And Protect is a pretty big draw there from BobertJoe because this Sandstorm Titan demands an answer. And now the first one isn't going to work. We saw he didn't have it last turn, so it's possible that the Sandstorm Titan just keeps demanding jump blocks for every turn of the rest of this game.
Yep. The blocks here are the 1/1 and the 2/1 here. Like essentially, he's putting the 2 damage in front of the Sandstorm Titan. I think it's technically correct to do it the other way around, but it doesn't really make too much of a difference here. Mystic Ascendant plays the Shadow Sigil and gets him a card draw, and he's still got a chump blocker for the 9/10. It looks like what Juaspas is doing is trying to struggle upwards to 9, where he can use the last word, and that is something that BobertJoe does not have an answer for if it does, in fact, appear.
Yeah, the last word is incredibly potent in this matchup, especially against singular creatures. And Juaspas does get to make forward progress that turn. They get to develop their Mystic Ascendant, draw a card, still have the chump blocker. They do need something this turn, but they have a couple draws at it.
Depleted power means that either the last word is in his hand, or he doesn't have the power necessary to play it. Either way, he's sitting on an 8/8. I think at this point, like he probably doesn't even block the 9/10.
Well, I would expect that Juaspas has a Scorpion Wasp here. There's 4 in the deck. Yeah, there we see the Scorpion Wasp. And that actually gets around the Protect. So that's a very good answer on the part of Juaspas.
Yep. Yeah, it's blanking that protect, making it so Bobbert really has to find some valuable units like Scouting Party or Marison's Disciple to go wide, because this 10/10 is becoming such a big threat that if he draws another power, he's done for.
Yep. It is a huge clock. And although, like BobertJoe, like Scouting Party is incredibly powerful. It makes 4, 5, 5. Marison's Disciple makes 2 giant cards. He has a lot of good top decks, but he needs to see them.
Even Great Parliament would be okay here. Knight Chancellor Seraph does sort of do the trick. It generates a second blocker for him, but he can't use the Seraph as a first blocker. So
it does, generate
12
something that can at least threaten to trade, but never mind. There is the Death Strike, which will force through lethal, and we will move to game 2.
1 power short of that protect against the Death Strike. Could have maybe pulled that back if he had it, but game 2 it is.
Yeah, it was unfortunate that the Protect was never able to get any value throughout the course of that game. A card that is usually very good against a control deck, but it just didn't line up.
Yeah, I think it might be something worth considering passing out. We're passing out of the sideboard. This deck is rather confusingly named 3 out of 5, and this is the 3rd copy of it. We're going to go ahead and look and see what sideboard changes end up being made. Ombre Healers come out.
Yeah, I would expect the Combat Healers to come out. They're very low impact. In the sideboard, he has access to a Permafrost, 3 Copperhall Bailiff, 3 Scorpion Wasp, a Great Parliament, 2 Crystallize, 2 Iron Thorn, and 3 Mystic Ascendant. I would definitely expect to see the 3 Mystic Ascendant and the Great Parliament. Though he needs a lot of things to tax Juaspas's removal. Outside of that, not sure what else we'll see. Possibly. No.
Permafrosts are coming out, and it looks like he's probably going for a more attachment light setting, where he can play those obelisks, and if the sabotages don't hit him early, then they can't really hit him late. Beyond that, Martial Ironthorn and Mystic Ascendant are in fact coming in. Those will help set up the Great Parliament and give him a lot more threats that Juaspas just has to deal with. So we will see exactly what happens there.
Yeah, Juaspas is a bit of BobertJoe has a bit of a transformative sideboard to kind of morph into Big Combre plus Shimmering Combre at the same time, which is going to be reasonably potent.
He's added 2 crystallizes. The crystallizes definitely allow him to push through for damage in a way that can potentially finish off the game. He's changed it back down to 1. I think that's probably the correct choice, since if the control game ends up being too heavy, he won't have that many units to push across with a crystallize. So here we go.
Yeah, it is interesting to see the crystallize. There's not a lot. I mean, there are some number of blockers. There's Sword of the Past, the Sandstorm Titan. I guess 1 is a good number to have. I didn't like 2, but 1 is fine.
If you're sitting on like 12 power and your opponent has been pressured at all, a crystallize is definitely something that could be an option. Juaspas is still considering his sideboard, so we're going to be waiting and discussing these particular sideboard changes. I think the Combre Healers coming out are definitely a pretty solid choice, although that is a card that's fairly hard for Juaspas to deal with without a Suffocate or a Death Strike.
Like BobertJoe just disenchanting his extra cards in the meantime. But we will look at the sideboard of Juaspas a little bit. He has 1 Sabotage, 1 Annihilate, 2 Decay, 4 Plague, 2 Subvert, 2 Lumen Defender, 2 Straight of Shadow, and 1 is Zendel's Gift. I would expect the 2 Decays to deal with potential Xenon Obelisks. Subvert may be able to come in. Plague is weird. It's never big enough to kill anything, really. I don't think we'll see that. So
Yeah.
his options aren't great.
Yep. I'm just I wonder he knows there's a button for that, right? Just click on your shift stones, destroy extras.
It's possible he just likes the process.
Yeah, it's a fun. It's very satisfying. All right, so we're up against Joas, and looks like he's maybe considering disenchanting an extra Seraph here. What's he doing here?
So many thick cards.
Oh,
But
he's got to put the premium Seraph in. That's the most
makes
important
sense.
of the Seraphs. Every shiny legendary ever. We still got to see Seraph hit one other legendary, right? Which one is it? Vodacan? Vodacan.
Yeah, Vodkin is like the last one it hasn't hit. Also Curio. Hasn't hit Curio yet.
Yeah, I'm still looking for a Seraph into a Seraph into a Seraph. That's on my Seraph bingo list.
Nick the Traxian is also a legal target now for Seraph, the new edition.
I have seen it happen. It's pretty great. Oh yeah, but I guess that's probably another legendary that we really got to go for. So yeah, just cross it off. We got to set up like a Seraph bingo chart, right? Like just like all the different legendaries and call them out. I think I like that plan.
Yeah, over time we'll just we'll eventually get all of them. We've gotten a lot today. A lot of work on that bingo board today.
It's been pretty crazy. So yeah, it looks like the challenge is being issued. The game is hopefully starting. We'll see if Juaspas is ready.
Yeah, I certainly just see how Juaspas sideboarded. They don't have a lot of particularly potent cards aside, but they might have sided out some more low impact things. Although, like, it's actually unclear how good the last word is in this matchup because usually Bobbert will be able to go wide. But we'll see as that plays out as we move here into game 2. BobertJoe having a very, very land heavy hand.
The Combre banners and the Elysian banners looks like Bobbert has everything he needs, but a very, very slow setup. He's always going to be a turn behind here, but he's going to reliably hit power for the next 5 turns. So, even 6 actually with Amber Acolyte. So he will be slowly making his way towards Shimmerpack. It's just a matter of what other gas he draws in between.
Yeah, he has a while. He has 8 turns to find his way there. This Temple Scribe is really good. It represents a body to get pumped by Shimmerpack later, and also a cantrip to help him find some additional gas. Although it won't be able to come down next turn.
Here, play either Find the Way or Temple Scribe, and that would be really, really good for him because that would allow him to set up the banner for later, and basically all of his power would be undepleted. But if he doesn't, then yeah, no, he just keeps playing on the back foot.
It's also not the worst thing in the world that all of his power is coming into play depleted. Juaspas is a control deck. It's not particularly proactive. He's not going to really be pressuring BobertJoe. So if BobertJoe stumbles a bit, like developing his mana, that's not the biggest deal in the world.
Juaspas is seriously considering a sabotage here. Chooses to Find the Way instead.
Yeah, that's certainly what it would appear to be. He just wants to... generally, you want to save sabotage until the turn before whatever you're looking to sabotage would be played, giving your opponent the maximum chance to have drawn it by then.
Yep, there's certainly we have the Find the Ways here, which clearly indicate because they echo. So Juaspas knows at least that portion of his opponent's hand. So whether or not he's worried about a Xenon Obelisk being in the hand is an interesting question. We have another Find the Way. So it looks like both players are just playing very, very slowly, setting up their power bases, getting ready to go into that late game. That could be very good for Juaspas if he ends up on the last word. But if BobertJoe manages to crowd the board with small weenies before then overall, I think it'll favor Joe.
Yeah, and I think if Juaspas has a sabotage, we'd see this turn. Here it is, because the turn before Xenobelisk, it ends up tagging a Find the Way. It doesn't have any other targets. That actually kind of matters.
It's 1 less power towards Shimmerpack. It's 1 less power towards Xenon Obelisk. It's not great because you're essentially trading 1 card for a half a card. This is part of the reason why I don't like Sabotage in these Xenon decks as a main board choice. So we have Seed of Wisdom there, and from that, we can infer that a 4-drop, probably a Sandstorm Titan, is coming down next turn.
Yeah, choosing to develop his mana there. Oh, and we see a Subvert that will take a Temple Scribe. And actually, that might matter because BobertJoe might struggle to find 6+ mana here.
Yeah, he's essentially stolen a card from BobertJoe and added it, and it wasn't even a card that was from BobertJoe's deck. So Juaspas is going to have 1 extra card in his deck as a result of this, but the Temple Scribe itself doesn't really do anything other than draw 2 that extra card.
Yeah.
Overall, it's definitely a net positive trade for Juaspas, although you definitely want to hit like that scouting party or that shimmer pack so that you can get even more card advantage.
Yeah, it might taking the Temple Scribe might cause BobertJoe to stumble here a bit. They as of right now, they can't cast either the Mystic Ascendant or the party. They're just really on Sandstorm Titan, and if that power ends up being a couple turns or a couple cards deep, you really would have wished to have had that cantrip.
Yep. Killed the party, and Joe just draws a new one. Another one of those risks of sabotage is that you feel like you have gotten rid of a threat, and then you now play around it, but it just ends up getting replaced. I see that happen all the time. So now a Sindel's Gift coming down. That
That
is
is
a
incredibly good.
matchup. Yeah, I think Bobbert's play is probably Mystic Ascendant. Scouting Party
It's
doesn't quite
interesting.
do what it wants.
It's so both of them do not play around Stray into Shadow. So I think you do the higher upside play, which is Scouting Party. You do need to draw like power for Mystic Ascendant to do anything. So my inclination would be to Scouting Party here, but I can see a defense for either.
Yeah, I don't think that Scouting Party is better than Mystic Ascent in this instance, on account of the fact that, like, essentially, it's more important to be drawing 2 cards consistently than to be drawing a bunch of cards at once when you're under an Azindel's Gift, because that it guarantees that you can draw like a power and then play something else. But if
That's
you draw
certainly
a
a fair
bunch of
point.
cards with Party, you might not actually be able to play them.
Yeah, it's just
Uh,
mainly that Party is a threat over like multiple cards. That if one of the cards he draws is an obelisk, then all of those 1/1s actually become relevant. Whereas the Mystic Ascendant could just get tagged by a single spot removal spell, as we saw just there.
Yep, Annihilate tags the Mystic Ascendant. That definitely puts Josswas in a better position, although it looks like there's another Mystic Ascendant coming down. So, unless there's more removal, which we would probably have seen used on the Sandstorm Titan, Mystic Ascendant number 2 might actually help BobertJoe get out of the situation. And keep in mind that Juaspas still has to find some way to stabilize the board, or else he's not going to be able to recover against what's currently on the board.
Well, the 6/6 plus an Annihilate does go to a long way towards stabilizing the board. BobertJoe doesn't really have profitable attacks now. And then the third Mystic Ascendant comes off the top. So this is
every card that Juaspas has directly dealt with, whether it be with saboteurs or with direct spot removal, has just immediately been replaced by BobertJoe's top decks.
yeah, and Juaspas has now got to the point of the game where this Mystic Ascendant is just going to bury BobertJoe. The 4/4 flyer would have been relevant before the Sandstorm Titan came down, but now it's just a 4/4 no abilities.
It's real unfortunate that he can't hold on to that until he has more power, but that's just not going to do it. At this point, Bobbert is really trying to find his 8 power so that he can activate Seraph.
Yeah, I was talking about that cantrip maybe biting BobertJoe, and it looks like he wouldn't have even come close to finding the extra power anyway.
Oh, Martial Ironthorn will help him get there. That's if he draws a power now, he can play 2/8 and immediately activate Seraph. So Josspas might want to try and deal with that Ironthorn in some way.
Yeah, if he can, he certainly would like to be able to. Now, BobertJoe is building a reasonable board where he finds things like Zetan Obelisk, or that power. It comes depleted, unfortunately, so he can't Seraph immediately. But now Seraph is starting to get ultimate every turn. BobertJoe has clawed his way back to a reasonable spot, and if Juaspas isn't able to deal with all these threats, he's going to be in a bad spot.
A Steward comes down. He still needs some sort of removal for Seraph, and he doesn't have it. So now Bobbert is actually going to be creating a really advantageous.
Oh, what is it? Terrazon?
Ancient Terrazon. Yeah, that's definitely going on the bingo board. 16/16, immune to that deadly effect of Steward of the Past because the Steward cannot deal damage. That card will allow Bobbert to continue to pressure every turn, and it has to be dealt with as a threat. Definitely one of the higher end Seraph pulls that you could have gotten.
Yeah, it's going to function like the Abyss, just demand a chump block every turn, essentially killing one of Drosspass's creatures every turn. So
yeah, it's a Seraph Legendary week here at the ETS.
yeah, only top 5% hits here, friends. That's it.
Okay, so Bobbert can slowly push up towards 15 and clear the board this way. And there's
my.
that Crystallize. That is game, unless Juaspas has an answer to it, and I don't know if there is an answer for Juaspas at this point.
He could have a removal spell, I think, because the Sandstorm Titan is still going to stay around, so that can block the Terrazon. And if you have a removal spell for one of the other creatures, it's 5/8. It's still lethal, I think. You have to have 2 removal spells.
That's a critical explosion out of a top deck situation that was quite nasty. So this is one of those things where if you have a bunch of card advantage, you still need a way to just close the game. Oh, he's got the Annihilate. He blocks the 5/5, and that still lethal.
Yeah.
That is game.
There we see that crystallized. So that game actually does look like it will devolve into a board stall a frequent amount of the time. So crystallized doing a lot of work.
Very good choice by BobertJoe to include one of those in his deck. Definitely ended up clearing that game for him in a otherwise just unwinnable situation. Really, really good stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And we will be moving to game 3. That evens up the score.
Now 1-on-1, Bobbert looking at his sideboard and thinking, hey, that crystal is pretty good. I think I'm going to put another one of those in there.
Yeah.
No, I think he might be considering taking it out now. So we have Stand Together as an option. He takes out a Temple Scribe for the Crystallize. That is a decent choice, I think.
It's always
Temple
that
Scribe is generally
Temple Scribe is always the
filler,
card you take out when you like can't think of anything better. It's just like, yeah, it's a cantrip. Like usually you don't want to do that because Temple Scribes are kind of part of like the core, like that core functionality of your deck, but they really go a long way towards fueling the consistency.
Yeah,
so you want to have a like more cohesive plan than that, but if in distress, you can always just take out Temple Scribes.
It is almost the equivalent of messing with your power base in the sideboard, which is something that you don't usually want to do. But on the other hand, this is a slow control deck versus a slow control deck. And we've already seen that with both players just playing like Find the Way and just not doing anything in the early game, there's no reason to have Temple Scribe there to ensure consistency because he's already going to be just trying to draw into his late game threats. And it's going to be card for card all the way there. So he might as well stock more powerful cards.
Yeah, very fair point. And I'll be interested, does BobertJoe have anything to deal with a Zendel's Gift? It doesn't look like he does. So that's another way that Juaspas can steal the game. It'd be interested if Juaspas stays with just the one they have main deck, or they elected to side in the second copy in the sideboard. But I think that's Juaspas's one of his better paths to victory is the Zendel's Gift.
It seems pretty solid. It definitely didn't help him as much as he wanted it to last game, but that was partly because Bobbert just drew Mystic Ascendant into Mystic Ascendant into Mystic Ascendant. So there were some pretty significant changes there. And yeah, like overall, like just Bobbert hit a lot more of his high value targets than maybe he even expected to. And that was pretty crucial. All right, so we got the last challenge. This one's for all the marbles. One of these players is going to the quarterfinals, and the other one is probably not.
Gonna go get some lunch,
going to be
some
based
dinner.
on tiebreakers. Yeah. All right. So we're
Let's see what this opener looks like from BobertJoe. Bunch of power.
Gonna find out who's hungry for victory and who's just hungry.
We see BobertJoe does keep this hand, which I like in this slow matchup. We know that Juaspas is incapable of really punishing BobertJoe for having a slow hand. And he has two very potent top-end cards and the power to get there. So it's a very solid keep from BobertJoe. He is vulnerable to flooding out, but it's not particularly likely.
Yeah, I like this hand. Being able to draw 6 power and then just play a big 6-drop. Like I said, this deck is very slow. So unless he's seeing like a Sandstorm Titan on 4, there's not a lot that Juaspas is going to be doing early. He could Steward of the Past and knock out the Mystic Ascendant pretty early. And Steward of Prophecy. Steward of Past doesn't knock anything out, but it's nice to have.
Yeah, we see the Steward of the Past, one of the earliest Juaspas can get on the board, turn 4. And this card is pretty good. It threatens to block, threatens to attack. And the second one actually allows the first one to attack, probably. So the clock is going to start, although it is pretty slow.
Bobert's Crystallize isn't terribly useful here, but it will be useful on turn 7 after a scouting party comes down. And so that's a pretty good setup for him. If he manages to get into a position where that actually functions, then that'd be pretty good.
Oh, but here comes a very powerful Sabotage, taking the scouting party, leaving BobertJoe with not really a good play next turn. He could play the Mystic Ascendant naked, but you definitely don't want to do that into 4 open shadow mana. So we see the Juaspas. We see because of that Juaspas like putting his foot to the pedal and swinging it for 6.
Yep, it's 6 against 4. Both players are going to get their pressure here, so that can be relevant for Bobbert later in the game, especially when he starts looking at Shimmer packs, but he's probably not going to play the Mystic Ascendant blind here.
Yeah, this happens to me a lot too, where I just like they have a Steward of the Past, it's like, yeah, it's a 3/5, whatever, I can race it doesn't matter. And then you look at your life total, you're at like 10.
Yeah, this is why I prefer Steward of the Past over Stone Scar Maiden in the Stone Scar decks, is because it is a card that actually generates quite a bit of pressure. The difference between 2 and 3 power is very critical in terms of actual pressure on the board. And, it looks like Juaspas is generating all of the pressure here, and We're gonna see what Bobbert can do about it.
Yeah, this is actually a huge amount of pressure because this these stewards of the past are still going to come in. Like he doesn't want to trade the Mystic Ascendant for them. If Juaspas has a removal spell for the Mystic Ascendant, like the Sandstorm Titan has to be chump blocked. Although
Yeah, if
he has the
there's a
protector to
second
protect.
Annihilate here, that's really bad. But it looks like he's just gonna swing for 6, and there's 6. Sandstorm Titan pretty likely to come down. He could vanquish the 5/6 and play his Titan, or he could vanquish the 5/6 and crystallize, which I think I like better.
Yeah, I definitely like crystallizing here as well.
Yeah, it's a defensive crystallize, but he gets so much damage out of this that it's not actually going to matter. Like, this is 10 here.
Yeah,
And,
it would technically be a 2-turn clock or lethal over 2 turns if he didn't have anything. We do see the Wasp there coming in to break that up, but
yeah,
it gives
Wasp
BobertJoe some
is,
time.
Wasp is definitely bad news.
Oh, that Umbran Reaper.
Man, if Bobbert had drawn a power,
Yeah.
Shimmer Pack would have allowed him to fix that board up into a situation where he actually liked it. But yeah, it looks like BobertJoe is in fact getting knocked out of this round. And
yeah, really close game there. We see that the Xenon deck was actually able to generate a lot of pressure, both with the Stewards of the Past and then the Umbran Reaper to finish it off. You don't usually see games play out that way, but it's cool that it has the potential to do that. Getting an attack from the deck.
didn't ditch the Temple Scribes, hard to say. Definitely did not have anything to keep those things at bay. And from there, it just kind of ended up not going very well for BobertJoe.
Yep.
Lots of advantage and not enough pressure.
We do have a backup match with Toth versus PigNorton with, again, it is game 3. This is the deciding game. Toth is a bit ahead on board.
Deck.
Yes. See if Toth elects to extend out further into with a Seraph. I'm not sure he needs to. But
you're risking that harsh rule just sort of blowing you out, but he's got some cards in hand that are pretty useful. I think overall his pressure game is very important here, so we'll see if that's going to be enough. PigNorton just sort of sitting still. I believe I've seen both of these players' decks at least once in the tournament so far, so got a little bit of an idea of what kind of things they're running.
And here comes the Great Parliament for 2 Owls. It's pretty potent. We do see that Toth has ways to deal with a lot of these flyers. He could even pull the trigger on Harsh Rule if he feels the need to do so. I'm not sure he does at this point, but
technically has more cards. So, but at the same time, using both of these Vanquish means he has much less cards in hand after a Harsh Rule, whereas reducing PigNorton to like top decks plus the 5 cards in his hand with 2 Vanquishes in hand could be fairly strong. I think overall, neither choice is particularly good for Toth, and he has so many silenced units here who just aren't doing enough. Yeah, but he picks the option that allows him to pressure for damage.
Yeah, I like the vanquishing the 2 flyers there, giving him pretty profitable attacks. The Sandstorm Titan does get double blocked down, but you need to play something potent here, and he does with the Iron Thorn, which does hold back a lot of these attackers. So it's on Toth to draw something to change this paradigm.
Yeah, Iron Thorn is that card that just doesn't seem like it generates a lot of pressure, but since it's enabling things like Seraph, it's enabling things like Great Parliament, it's something that you really have to deal with. And if you don't deal with it before 15, then it just completely ends the game for you. So it's a weird mix. Oh,
interesting.
My.
Is that lethal?
It might be. I think he's 1 short here.
Because the only 2 gets through, it's 1 short, but he could set it up for like a couple turns from now.
Yep. He can Harsh Rule here if he wants to, and Desert Marshal for the extra 2.
Yeah, or he can threaten and stuff Desert Marshal. Yeah, he could just. Yeah, he's not in a bad spot. This Flame Blast might close it out for him here.
Definitely has a way out of this game, and that way out is just 1 power. He's sitting at 25, so I think he's just he's in a very commanding position.
Actually, this Desert Marshal does it too because Pig didn't play anything. So we'll see if this actually connects for damage because it would be lethal.
Yep, 6 damage plus Flame Blast.
Is there a protect? Oh. No, there isn't. That will be game for Toth, and the Flame Blast coming in to finish it off.
Good sideboard choice. Very good way to resolve a board stall and make sure that you can actually push in for that extra amount of damage. So good on Toth.
Very interesting deck from Toth. I like it. The deck does get to high mana counts a lot. People have often on my stream begged me to play Flame Blast in the Vodafone deck, but this seems a lot more reasonable as a sideboard plan for long matchups, and we see it pay dividends there.
It's a pretty critical card if you want to push across for that extra amount of damage. Flame Blast is that card that resolves any situations where people are getting just a little bit too silly and doing too many silly things like Mystic Ascendance and other things like that. Just keeps people honest. It's like, well, I've been winning most of this game, so if you're gonna try and like seize control back, well, I'm just gonna answer that by making sure that you are dead.
Yeah, definitely. It's just why mess around with the card advantage when I could just kill you?
Say goodbye, and that is the end of our games. We're looking at our top eights, and
Okay.
yeah,
So we will be back with our top eight shortly. This is the end of round 6. So definitely stick around for the elimination rounds of this tournament. But we will take a short break here. So for LocoPojo, I am Truedawn, and we will see you shortly.
see you soon, folks.